So it'd be interesting then to, I guess, speak about hallucinations and illusions, just to kind of explain the differences between the two of them. A hallucination is when you believe you're seeing something that isn't actually there, whereas an illusion is where you're seeing something in a specific way that it's not being presented. So there's almost like there's this really famous one of a duck and a rabbit. If you're looking at the creature looking one way, you see a duck. The other way, you see a rabbit. It's really really fun to look at, but it's obviously a sort of optical illusion. So how do kind of realists then, to direct realists, begin to address things like illusions and hallucinations?
Yeah, good. So in a hallucination, you're having an experience that doesn't have an object, so to speak. Or like that's how I would describe it as a direct realist. There's You're having an experience in which it seems as if you're aware of something, but there isn't actually anything there. Okay, so like you took some LSD and then you think that you're seeing a pink rat on the table, and and the place where it looks to you like the pink rat is, there's literally nothing there, or there's just air there. Right? Okay, that's hallucination. In an illusion, you're seeing a real object, but you're misperceiving its characteristics to some degree. So like there's the famous Mueller-Lyer illusion where there are two lines that are the same length, but they're like arrows pointing inward on one of them and pointing outward on the other one. Okay, and they look like they're different lengths, but they are not. Okay, it's not a hallucination because those lines are there, but it's an illusion because like you would be tempted to misjudge their relative lengths, right? So okay, and so what is it? So like there's this argument that's sometimes given that, oh well, it can't be that you're directly aware of the real physical thing because in this illusion case, you're aware of you're aware of a line that's longer than the other one, but the real physical line isn't longer. So it must be that you're just perceiving the mental image of the line. Okay, and I have a hard time saying this argument because it's just so obviously false to me. like, no, you're aware of two lines, and one of them looked longer than the other one, but it's not the case that it was longer. So you're not aware of a line that is longer. You're aware of a line that is the same length but looks longer. And I don't think that that creates any problem for saying that you're aware of the real object. Now, in the case of the hallucination, then people say, oh, well, you're seeing like a pink rat shaped thing, but there's no physical object that's pink and rat shaped. So you must be seeing a mental object. And then I would say, no, so you're not actually seeing any object. Like you're in a mental state that seems like you're seeing something, but you're not seeing anything because there isn't anything there to see, right?
Yeah, it's really interesting, sort of illusions and hallucinations. I mean, if it's going to be a bit of a weird question, I think it's one to try and, I guess, dive back into the idea of kind of defeaters for knowledge. So if I can't think of an example, but if there was something that was an illusion which most people had or consistently have, to the point where we're never going to get past this sort of illusion, so we can use the brain in a vat example. If it isn't true, but there's no way we're ever going to know that it's not true, could it ever count as a defeater for knowledge? So we could believe that we have knowledge, that we know something to be correct and accurate, but actually there is a defeater. We're just never going to be able to broach it because it's on the other side of our cognitive faculties. Like, could that ever possibly be argued for? It's so far outside of us that it feels like it couldn't be, but I thought I'd ask the question anyway.
Well, I mean, you might think the brain of that scenario is like that, right? So
Yeah.
in the brain of that scenario, there is a defeater out there, but we're never going to know because the simulation is perfect, and um, there there are no mistakes in the program or anything. So, um, but that short of crazy skeptical scenarios, there are cases where we would misperceive something, but it's generally discoverable. Okay, so why do people used to think that the sun goes around the Earth? And the natural answer is, well, it kind of looks like the sun is going around the Earth. Okay, and as a side point, Wittgenstein had trouble understanding this answer, and he said, well, how would it have looked if it looked like the Earth was rotating? Right, with the idea that it would look the same. So, what do you mean that it looked like the sun was moving? But anyway, okay, but nevertheless, leaving Wittgenstein aside, most people would say, yeah, it looks like the sun is moving. That's why we thought that the sun was moving. but also like there are further implications which can be tested. Like we could figure out that it was really the Earth rotating, because there's like this Foucault's pendulum experiment where like, you have a pendulum swing back and forth for a long time, and like the plane of oscillation slowly rotates. So, it winds up going this way and then like going this way. Okay. And so like that demonstrates that the Earth is really rotating, right? So like it's really hard to think of a case where we're subject to an illusion and there's no way of discovering it, unless you go to like crazy skeptic type scenarios, like, oh, we're living in a simulation or something like that.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I mean, I was going to kind of push in and speak about the reliability of our cognitive faculties. Obviously, they are. I think it might be worth just touching this anyway, but they're obviously prone to error. They're prone to biases. I guess how far can we trust ourselves is probably the question I want to ask. Like you could think that you are on the money on certain things, and actually you then read your book and you realize that actually you're just going down the lucky route or whatever it is, and you could begin to be challenged. But I guess there's sort of a place where people can come away being really uncertain about their cognitive faculties, or somebody could be way too confident about their cognitive faculties. How do we get the temperature right where we should be this confident about our cognitive faculties? Like, where is that place?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, because it's like a lot of people have the problem of overconfidence, and and I mean like their level their level of confidence, or the like probability that they would sign to a proposition like is out of proportion to how often they're right. And so, and by the way, there are psychology experiments demonstrating this, so it's not just my anecdotal opinion, right? Although lots of anecdotal evidence also suggests this, and like it seems like it's hard to get people to change their beliefs by giving them counter evidence, especially like if it's about religion or politics. So like it seems like that's the main problem. There aren't a lot of underconfident people, but then also it seems to me like, well, there's people are overconfident about controversial, difficult to know things, and they're underconfident about obvious, uncontroversial things. So like, it's wrong to torture babies for fun. I think people are underconfident of that. Like, there's a bunch of people who think, oh, I don't know, because that implies that morality exists. Maybe morality doesn't exist. And so, like, okay, there are philosophical worries, which I think sort of like, they're outlandish, and they're sort of like, crazy person worries. And like, it's fine to think about them theoretically, but like in your sort of real life, when you're really thinking about like what to do, these philosophical worries shouldn't be influencing you. So like, people are taking things like that more seriously than the things that they should be taking seriously, which are like, maybe I'm wrong about abortion, like I'm a pro-choice person. Maybe the pro-lifers are right. I've gotten confused. Maybe fetuses are people. And like that you should take seriously, because that's a thing that a bunch of people really think seriously, and a bunch of smart people really think. And they're not just like philosophers who are raising armchair speculations think that, right? So okay, but the other thing I want to say is, so as individuals we're very error prone, but I'm very impressed with the history of science, like the things that people have figured out. It's really amazing. It's really amazing how good this institution is. And there are various just very impressive people in the history of science, but also just like the whole process. It's just like a really good process if you apply it over a long period of time, right? Because I put that qualifier because like in most areas we were totally wrong at the beginning. Okay, but over time it just gets better and better. Okay, so like, well, you should be pretty confident of the stuff that humanity as a whole, like billions of, well, okay, there weren't billions of scientists, but a lot of people over a long period of time, and they critique each other, and they're constantly like trying to find what's wrong with each other's ideas, and the ideas that survive over centuries, like those are pretty good, right? You should rely on that, and you should put more confidence in that than your own initial impression by yourself.
If you enjoyed this clip, then head on over to Locals to access the full conversation right now. Supporters can access the video version, and everyone can access the audio-only version of the conversation. I'll see you over there.